So we're actually in the draw button setup. It has button texture, but this is more or less establishing the fact that it can have a texture. You see there's no actual texture specified here. It's pretty much just enabling the fact to have a texture, if that makes sense. So let's go see if we can find where that is actually set. We need to look for button texture in the actual event graph of where this function is set. So it'd be really cool if we could go search maybe. I'm just curious, I've never tried this before, not in here anyway. Texture, there's draw button, that's the function I guess. Draw texture simple, draw button, select, well, there's quite a lot of stuff. But let's just randomly click through stuff and the results, you see it jumps to them. Button texture, yeah, maybe button texture, select, there's two buttons. We have, here we go. We have whenever you see this little icon here, you know that something's coming out of the content browser. There's normal, or it's kind of the up state of a button if you go with Flash terminology or scale form terminology, and there's the down or pressed state. So two textures are required, and you can see if we go to browse, it shows them here. But just for fun, I'm gonna change them to crazy other examples. Okay, so anyway, when you press the resume button gets the different texture to what its default is. If that makes sense. And you can see when the quit button is pressed, we could do the same thing again. So there's the first one, and there's the second one. Make sure it's actually changed, and there we go. And it takes a second to check. Yep. And we don't know. I press quit, so it quitted straight away. But that looked like it was working fine. So, yeah. Button texture. Hitbox name for the quit button is quit. Button text is quit. Button screen location is sort of set by these offsets, and comes all the way back to the screen dimensions, which we mentioned before. It's pretty tricky. I do apologize that I'm not like making this really smoothly flowing and nice to read on the screen. We can probably clear out these results now. We've looked at the texture asset and the font. We've looked at the position on the screen. So that's pretty much all there is to establishing a button really, except for the actual events of the button. So let's look at those. The events for the button are within the HUD blueprint. And you can see that there's hitbox click, hitbox release, and there's the left mouse button. You can pretty much read the comments for this part. It's not terribly complicated. The event fires when the hitboxes drawn are clicked. Right? This is the actual click that you do, and when you release the left mouse button, it makes sure that the button is no longer set to be pressed as a boolean. Resume button pressed is just a boolean that's floating around. So this boolean needs to be set to be false whenever you let go of the mouse, and that's what happens here. When you let go of the mouse, you're not clicking on either of them, so they both get set to be off. Right? When you do click on the hitbox, it will. This is a nice little kind of newish function that I hadn't really seen before. But what it does is, if the name of the box is resume, it knows that you've clicked on resume, which is clever. If the name of the box is quit, it knows you've pressed on quit, and that's how it goes through there. Right? This is the click. When you click on it, it gets set to the resume button is pressed, or depending on which one you press, it gets set true. Right? So remember, down the bottom here, they get set false when you let go. They get set true when you click them. And now it's checking like when you let go of it after you've clicked it, which one did you click on, and then if that value is true, then it will do whatever. So the resume will go to that menu open function that we mentioned in the interface there, toggle menu, right, and it will turn it off. Right, so this is a way to turn off the menu. Simple as that. Now what we want to do is for the player, hide the cursor, show mouse cursor, get set off. This is on, this is off, right? Disable click events again. I'm not sure why we need that there, but I guess there's a reason. I'm not too worried about that right now. Unpause the game. This means we can move around again. Somewhere there must be a set game pause. True, because when you click the buttons, you can't. When you open the menu, you can't move the camera around. So somewhere we've had that function, but I didn't see it. But it's there for sure. So pause off. We're no longer paused. So that's resume. A bunch of stuff happens. You could also play a sound or something like that. This one's the quit branch. So if the name of the button that you press is quit, it knows you press quit, and so it's true. It does the console command quit. This is very similar to how things work in UDK. To find this, just in case you're wondering, once you know the name of some stuff, you can just search for it. You don't need to specify a player in this case, because quit in a single player game just checks you out, and there's no need to worry about anybody else. That's the events for clicking on the buttons. There's a lot of bulls on offs going on. I like the way that it figures out which button is pressed based on the name of it. You kind of have one event for both of them. It's kind of efficient. Okay, so the last thing we want to look at in this particular case is the health bar on the screen. I'm just going to play again to refresh your memory. No, it's not compiled, but I think auto compiles on. So see at the top of the screen it says health, and it's 70%. And the little slider goes up, bing, and the object gets destroyed. Right. Let's have a look at that part. So go all the way back to the beginning. It does the screen dimension stuff. Should the menu items be displayed? Is the menu open? False. If the menu is not open, then it should be displayed. Right? Okay, and then so draw health bar and screen text. So get the player pawn, his health. This is kind of equivalent if you're thinking of UDK or Unreal 3 or whatever. Remember you have the player variable. This is pretty much like getting the player variable, player 0. Yeah. It's just laid out differently. The health is sort of it's calling on this interface we mentioned earlier. You can see there's get player health there. Health is, I think, a variable established in the pawn, so it's easy to grab that most of the time. So it returns a value. The value here is a float value. A really cool thing about this version is if you scrub over the whatever anything is, it tells you what it is. Where do we get up to? We get the player health. Yay, gives us a number. So set the scalar parameter value. This is essentially scaling a material based on the value of the health. Right. I think again in UDK not terribly hard to do, and in here also not very hard. Anyway, but it's getting its position X, Y, Z, width and height. Let's just change it. Just see. This is just me knocking some values in randomly. Let's make it just 20, and screen W will make it 600, and screen height will make it 100. Scale doesn't matter. Right. So before it was up in the top corner here. Let's just play now, and let's see if that screws anything up. Oh yeah, there you go, right in the middle of the screen there, nice big and fat. And oh, the height 100. Yeah, I don't know what it was before, but anyway, we'll just leave it as it is. See if it still works later on. The text here, control hints. That's just a guess, but screen X50 sort of suggests that it is. Let's make it 200. And screen Y is coming from the screen dimensions for some reason. Subtract to offset from the bottom of the screen. These things you would always want to try out and test out. I don't think anything really changed there. Oh, it's this little guy at the bottom, which is press M for menu. That's what we're changing. See, it's jumped in from the side, but it's still down the bottom. So let's make that to be 300. And play again. It compiles automatically when it plays. There you go, it's up in a bit higher now. Right. Cool, so we've got some nice little text on the screen going on there. So that function is called draw text. you'll find that in HUD, where is it? Core function, HUD, there's a whole bunch of draw line, draw material, draw rectangles, textures, which is what's being used for the buttons, I suppose, and then draw material, which is what's happening here. This is what we're using for the there's a material instance, so it has some sort of scale parameter that can be set to the health of the player. That's why it can jump up when the player gets the little plus icon. Alright, so draw health bar and screen text, draw objective locator. Okay, this is the little thing with the star, and it says health 100 meters or something. So you can see in UDK you would have a concatenate strings script that you would grab off of the gems or the forum or wherever and shove into your Kismet actions. And here it comes on or as appends A and B. Right? We're getting a number from something. That's the vector length of something something. So yeah, we're getting the actor location, which is current objective. That is the plus symbol set somewhere, and then we're getting the player. So distance from player to that plus sign, turning that into a vector, subtracting them, that gives you the length of the vector, divide it by 100. So it's, instead of just saying 100, it would say 1 and then m here is appended to it, so meter. So basically we're taking say it's 100 meters away, we take 100, take away, we divide it by 100, 100 divided by 100 is 1, rounding if we need it, and then we turn that to a string, we draw the string, and we add in a colon, and then we add in meters after that. So it's all over the place, but somewhere in here there's another append here. The order here may look a little confusing. Let's just see what happens when you play. Health pickup colon 6m, right? So health pickup must be the name of it there. Colon number. Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe the order there, but you just concentrate and you can figure it out. I suppose the main thing I wanted to point out is you append all the strings together. Get text size, so it takes the length of all of that, and there's a font again. We could go back to the content browser and change it. We're finding the center of it, it looks like. We're getting the center in order to do something. I think it's just to figure out where to draw it on the screen. It's kind of a strange way to do it, but you know, a lot of this seems really strange, but then you think about it and you go, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. It's just concentrating. Last thing, draw texture simple. This is our little star, I suppose. Let's just find in content browser. Yep, there's the little star there. So again, just to hammer home some really basic stuff. If we change that here and go play, we're not going to have a star anymore. We're going to have a weird square. Right? And you see the position of it is all wrong because the size of things was sort of set to work with that star. Alright, so that doesn't look very nice or anything, so I'm going to set it back again. But the point is, it's all pretty changeable. Right? With a bit of work, you could subtract a slight horizontal offset. Well, maybe let's try that. Let's just go 200 and go back to that content browser and put in a little change to that image again. Bio generic, yep, and then play, and ta-da! There's a big offset now on it. Notice the number changing there, right? That's how the objective thing works. It's kind of badly explained by me, but it's set up really nicely. This is not how I would lay things out. I would try to keep it as linear as possible, with as little back flowing lines as possible. I don't mind if it spreads out really wide. I don't like it when a lot of stuff doubles back, and I also like to not let lines go through a operator or a action or function. So yeah, I would probably, if it was mine, which it's not, I would just take care to try to make it readable for somebody else or just for myself later on. Comments are really good. I might just talk about that just in case new users are really not sure what that's all about. Comment is right click and there it goes. Yay, easy. So this is a comment for the function. You've also got comments for the entire block, and that works a lot like in UDK. So it's got a properties section there where you can edit colors, and you can, unlike the other one where you sort of right click and it's there, in this one you just double click and you've got text. Draw objective locator, man. Alright, locato. I noticed the other day, and it seems to be happening here, is that locatro, see, this is not my mistake, that's kind of like a alignment error. And I don't know if that is an error or it's just something that I'm doing wrong, but it's really difficult to throw your cursor. Depending on the scale of it, it seems to get worse and worse. If you know it's there, you can just work around it. To create those from scratch, let's just throw in some function. I'm going to do a key press and a print string. Print string is really handy for that. It's like the log in this version of Unreal, and it says hello. Let's say you pressed A like a champion. So we press A and so on. So if you want to comment all this, you just grab them, just like in UDK. Not quite like in UDK. In UDK, you had to go something like Alt Control right click at the same time. I can't remember already. Control middle mouse, and it's all different now. So in this version, it's much nicer. You just click and drag. That's really cool. Saves a finger, and then you press C, which is also very nice. And then you, instead of in the previous one, you'd right click in the empty space. And if you actually right click on one, you wouldn't get the same thing. So just pressing C is good, and also A input, something like that. That'll do. Alright. Like I said, properties over here. You can decide to change colors and opacity, all that kind of stuff. Let's go play. You pressed A like a champion. It's really late at night, by the way. That's why I'm jabbering like a fool. I'm going to leave that in the edit. There's one more thing. Is like, how does it actually know when you do the health thing to change it by 30? Just to clarify, when we go pick it up, the health bar still jumps up by the right length. Remember that I clicked on the actor and went Control E or right click and go edit, or you go to the scene outliner and go edit. All the same thing, really. That will bring up the script here. So you see there's a function, there's two of these. Anyway, double click them. Anyway, we get the player pawn. We apply damage to them, but in the true, tricky, codey kind of way of computer games, it's a minus value, so we're not actually damaging them at all. We're healing him. Let's just set it to 10. And what we're going to do is go into our scene and let's get the Kismet out of the way. Get the blueprint editor out of the way and find that actor, and let's make some duplicates of it. Remember, this is actually not a plus mesh, it is a blueprint. So if we alt drag it around, we're getting more blueprints. So I'm really curious just to see how out of the box this works. Does it go 10, 10, 10 to 30? Because we changed the value to 10. I hope so. Otherwise I'll look like an idiot. So that worked. That worked. And that worked. So yay, very good. Let's just escape it and do it again. The whole distance to target thing becomes a little odd. That's another matter. Because you can see, I don't think we're out of the world or anything, but it's kind of it's still still taking that first one as the distance. You can see the icon and stuff is still stuck on him. It kind of ignores these guys. So just curious, if we grab that guy first, nothing changes. So if you wanted to make this more appropriate, you would probably want to do some sort of object list. I'm talking in Kismet terms again here. In Kismet, you have an object list. You put the 3 things into an object list. You'd figure out which one's closest to the player, and you would put the health pickup thing on top of that instead. Right, the one that's closest to you. That would make more sense. But that's not really anything to do with what I changed. I just changed the value of the health, and it worked. I was pretty happy about that. Alright, so I have to apologize for this really, coffee-driven, late at night, not sure what I'm talking about, but giving it a brave go kind of description. I just opened up this scene and thought, a lot of stuff I was wondering about really makes sense after looking at this. Hopefully the explanation helps somebody. I'm not going to save, I'm going to call it a day.